This time on Easy on Cars.
I've been hearing something, Mr. Turner. Sounds like an engine. Where? What direction? I can't make it out. Seems like it's all around us. Can't you hear it? That what you mean? Yeah, that's it.
That's right. We fire up the Impreza for the very first time. But before we get into that, we left off last time needing to install our axles. We had to assemble our cooling system. There was lots of wiring to button up, and we also have to install our exhaust. I find it's always good to have an extra hand when working on project cars. So today I've got a friend helping me out install the radiator and finishing up the cooling system. Basically, we drilled holes in the lower radiator crossmember, ran 3-inch bolts all the way through, and then stuck rubber hose between the aluminum radiator and the steel. This turned out as good or better than factory. Next up, I started filling the radiator with coolant through the upper radiator hose. It wasn't long after that we spotted coolant pouring out of the back of the engine. That's when I figured out that I forgot to connect the throttle body coolant return hose. With that sorted out, we've pretty much wrapped up the cooling system. So now that I have the engine and transmission in the car, I'm going to go ahead and put the axles back in. And if you remember last time, I was trying to put the engine in and the transmission was kind of out of whack, which ended up causing the axle boots to tear. You can see these are the old ones right here. Both of them are kind of in rough shape now after jacking the transmission up so high with them in place. So I went ahead and got brand new axles, so that way I have the confidence of fresh hardware going in, and these ones both match, unlike the other two which actually were not quite the same. They both worked, they just weren't exactly the same. And the other nice thing is we'll have a couple of spares on the shelf when I rebuild those ones, so I'm going to go ahead and put those things in. Starting off with the driver's side axle, I found it best to pop it into the transmission and then attempt to line up the spindle. Now I'm doing the spindle and the strut bolts. I'm not going to get too fancy with the camber here because one of my first stops is going to be the alignment shop. Here's a trick that I do with my pry bar to prevent the front wheel from spinning. Be careful and your mileage may vary. Next up, I'm installing the accessories. I decided to go with the newer style alternator and power steering pump from the EJ engine. This meant I had to modify the brackets to fit them on the engine. Overall, it moved the pulleys 14 millimeters forward. Now cue the fluids compilation. I went with some cheap oil for just firing this thing up. This will act as a flush for all the assembly fluids. We're going to change it out right away. So now for the part that scares a lot of people away from this swap, the wiring harness. Today I'm simply wiring up the stock ECU into the body. What I want to do is find out if this engine runs. If you treat the harness from the engine to the ECU as one single unit that can just be pulled out of the SVX, then really all you need to wire up to the chassis to get this thing to fire is the starter, the fuel pump, and ECU power. That being said, what you see in my car is a little more complicated, as I already have a lot of the wiring ran for the Megasport ECU. It should be noted that I have the wiring diagrams both for the SVX and my 2006 Impreza. One thing that came to light was an immobilizer relay under the dash. This was preventing the car from cranking, as the ECU was no longer in place to switch it on and off. The final thing I'm going to do before firing it up is install the exhaust. This exhaust should do well through shakedown of the engine until we can start fabricating the manifolds for the twin turbo configuration. Once I have the gaskets installed and everything tightened up down here, we're about ready to start it up. Here it is. With the turn of the key, we know the engine that we built works. This is a big win for Easy on Cars. We've still got a long way to go to make this thing drive, and even farther to reach our final goal. Stay tuned to Easy on Cars to see us overcome a fueling issue, run the engine for more than just a couple minutes, button up all the systems overall, and with any luck, we'll take it for a spin. Our claim to fame is a running EG33 Impreza, Easy on Cars.
That's just fine. I'm seeing that hose in there just go down to nothing.